Hey, I'm Truman with Park Tool, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about diagnosing bikes. We frequently get questions via messages, emails, phone calls about what is the problem with my bike and how do I fix it? And diagnosing is a huge part of that. So, it's one thing like my bike is skipping or my bike is making this noise. Those are huge telltale signs of what's going on, but there can be many things. So kind of dialing it in, using more of your senses to kind of dial in on what is actually going on the bike. So one very helpful one is, a little bit of a drop test. So like I'm gonna pick up the back of this bike, drop it. Seems pretty normal back here, not a lot of noise. But now I'm gonna go to the front end of this bike, pick it up. There's some vibrations, it sounds like it's clunking, it just doesn't sound good, it doesn't sound right. So now we know the problem is in this region. It's not reverberating from the back, it's up here. So we can tell that we can start to look at items in this region. So one of the first things that you're gonna test is your headset. For play, I'm not feeling anything wheel straight ahead, but let's isolate it a little bit more from, I'm still not feeling any. And on this, I'm putting my finger on the bearing cap and the head tube and trying to feel if there's play between there. Really not feeling anything. Now I'm gonna try that on the bottom here. Still really not feeling anything. Another thing that can cause this is if the stanchions of the fork are loose in the lowers. So the way you can tell that is feel for it right here. Not feeling anything. It could also be the wheel. If the wheel was loose, or a bearing adjustment was loose, or the bearings were worn out, it could be play, and that would cause that sound too. Not the case. Go down here to the rotor. It's nice and tight. It's not making that noise. And now the brake. Sit here, caliper is tight. I'm gonna put my finger on the pads. They're tight in there as well. What could it be? Just thinking a little bit outside the box, I'm gonna sit on this top tube and then load this up and feel it. So I'm gonna do this. Now there's play. I loaded that bottom bearing by putting weight down on it. It put all the play to the top, and now I can definitely feel play in the headset. So we know that there's a bearing that's going out, it's out of adjustment, and it needs grease. Because if this spacer was free, that would mean that your preload adjustment on the top was not tight enough. But we know it's pretty tight, and we turned it a little bit earlier. We know it's tight, so we know that this is not loading up the bearings enough, which probably means there's some corrosion in here. But let's get into it and take a peek. Much better. So no more rattle when we drop this. So what we did, we got in there, we dropped the headset, or dropped the fork out of here, pulled the bearings, checked them out. Turned out they weren't the bearings we were expecting them to be. So we didn't have any spares around. So we did what we would refer to as an overhaul. We cleaned the bearings, greased the bearings, made sure there was no pitting, and then reinstalled them. But now we've solved the problem. The corrosion was the main issue. It wasn't allowing the wedges or the races to really compress the bearings and create a sufficient preload. Now we greased it up and we're allowing for that to happen. So this is gonna have a lot longer service life. We're gonna get this back into the hands of the rider so they can ride it for another summer. Maybe we'll replace their bearings over the winter, but it should be good to go for quite a long time. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.